Hello again, friends, and you are my friends, and welcome to our second Meet the Opposition. I'm joined this time by Matty Phillips, and I'm looking forward to this one, Max. We're sitting down with David from the Blue Moon podcast ahead of this Saturday's trip to Man City. And how are you feeling a little bit about that trip very quickly?
It's just a continuation of that baptism of fire, isn't it? When the fixtures were announced, can we have an easy start to the season? No. Liverpool at home, Man City away. So, look, we put up a good account of ourselves, didn't we, against Liverpool, albeit it was the inevitable defeat. Let's see what we can do when we go to the Etihad on Saturday.
So I started by asking David, Matt, about that win at Chelsea, and it was a comfortable win, and they never really even left third gear. Here's what David had to say about it.
I think you're right in that City didn't really leave third gear, but I think that's by design as well. Given at this stage of the season, they've barely had any players back from the Euros, and barely anybody did pre-season. So it's very much a case of, all right, then go out there, do the job, and see what happens. And the performance actually for a team that was looking quite unfit sounds like a really it's a really loaded term, but they're unfit compared to where they would normally be. But compared to me, for instance, they're very fit at the moment still. So it's like it seems like really harsh for me to come on and say, yeah, well, they're not very fit, watching them run around like that, knowing that I can't run the length of a football pitch without wheezing and getting out of breath. But they're in this stage of still kind of getting ready for the season. And let's be honest, if you're going to play City, and certainly Guardiola's incarnation of City, early in the season is probably not the worst time to do it. Just on the basis of they aren't ready for the season yet. They're not ready for the rigors of especially 2 games a week, which is fortunate that there's none of that yet. And then kind of like you look at the performance over at Chelsea, and there were good moments. They played well for a team that is I would say they played well considering. But there's still quite a lot of room for improvement given where City's normal level is. They didn't really control the game in the way that they would normally. There was a lot of moments where Chelsea were able to get on top and kind of almost create something. And I think it probably helps that Chelsea are a bit, as you say, at the moment, all over the place. They had moments where for instance, it got to half time and I actually thought City were a bit lucky not to go in level. I thought Chelsea had probably done enough in the first half to get an equaliser. And then you get through the second half and there's a couple of spells where Chelsea have a couple of corners and get on top, and they don't manage to find the shot. And that is, I don't know if that's kind of good defending from City or if that's kind of bad attacking from Chelsea, or a bit of both here and there. And then the one thing City do in that game that is a very big City trope is they take the game away from Chelsea by not letting them have the ball. And there was a period of about 10-15 minutes in the second half where City they were attacking by not trying to attack. They didn't really have any ambition of getting into the Chelsea box and getting a shot away unless the opportunity presented itself, and they couldn't say no to it. But mainly it was a case of, you are not getting the ball and you are not going to have a chance on our goal. So we need to just kind of kill the game and take the sting out of it. And that ultimately is what led to Chelsea rushing it, giving it away to Kovacic in the middle. Kovacic then runs through the middle and somehow pops it in. I'm not entirely sure how it went in, but it went in. And you take them. So yeah, it was a good display, certainly for the time of the year. But there is a lot of room for improvement.
And you're a team packed full of superstars, and I'm sure we'll cover it throughout the course of this recording. But you should be, or could be, getting another one returning. Grandowan being linked with Manchester City. What's your thoughts on that? On that?
I would, if it helped matters, I would be running to Barcelona right now with that contract offer. I don't know why he left. Well, I do know why he left in the first place. He wanted a 2-year deal. City wanted only to offer him a 1-year deal. City are quite cautious in when players get towards the end of their contracts and the end of their time. They're very cautious not to end up with a player that they can't shift when it comes to kind of like, if you have a player that is kind of mid to late 30s and you don't know what their kind of level is going to be going forward. you tend to see City keep offering 1-year deals and 1-year deals to just kind of make sure that they don't end up on a player with a couple of years left on their deal and no use to the squad whatsoever, which I understand entirely. So City only wanted to offer him a 1-year deal. Barcelona offered him a 2-year deal. He quite liked the idea of going to Barcelona and playing in Barcelona as well. I mean, who doesn't?
Absolutely.
In all sorts of things. But at the same time, I don't think he quite realised what a basket case Barcelona is at the moment. And so he's got there. Things haven't been quite as what he's expected. And now, I mean, for whatever reason, Gundogan was one of their best players last season. Why on earth they would go out, spend 60-odd million euros on Danny? I mean, Danny Olmo's a good player, don't get me wrong. But why would you go and add a player that you can't register and then have to shift somebody on to be able to register them? And the player you're having to shift on is a player that you can get rid of for free to back to another. Like, if City are interested in a player, then you should probably look at keeping him if he wants to stay. That's kind of like where I'm at with it. So if Gundogan wants it to happen, he wants the deal to come back to City. Pep wants it to happen. I don't see any reason for it not to happen. The only reason I see for it not happening then in that case is Barcelona, which, I mean, there's plenty of opportunity for them to mess things up in this transfer as well. And I think what it kind of shows is, actually thinking back, City should probably have just offered him a 2-year deal a year ago. Because if they had done, this would be his second season of his contract, and they obviously think he can still do it if they're going to go back for him. So just offer him the deal, and then he doesn't have that year of Barcelona nightmare. I hope he's back. I don't really know where it leaves the squad, because there's a fair number of midfielders in there at the minute that kind of occupy those positions, and you would expect he'd come in fairly high up the pecking order. Maybe not as high as he was when he left. But at the same time, if you're Matthias Nunes, for instance, who barely played last season, you're probably not going to be playing ahead of Ilkay Gundogan if he's available and in those positions. So where does that leave someone like him? What it does do, I guess, is there's a lot of talk all the time about Rodri and kind of where he can get his rest. Gundogan is a great number 6. He's a great number 8. So like he can kind of be the utility midfielder when they need to have a game where Rodri has to rest. He's in that kind of zone of oh god, this guy's played 300 games in the last kind of 2 years or so. Maybe we can take him out and put Gundogan in for a game here and there, and that shouldn't be too disruptive to the squad, because you look at the Premier League games City lost last season, all of them were when Rodri wasn't available.
I was going to say, David, Rodri's not actually kicked a ball since the Euro final, has he? So is there a question mark over when he comes back, and maybe that's why the Gundogan deal is coming forward?
It could be. I don't know if he's back for weekend. I know. So basically, what happened is it's not a massive thing, but City couldn't get in touch with him after the Euros, so they didn't know the extent of his injury. So I don't know. Yeah, he basically he did. I God love him for it, because I mean, we all love to do this. He finished work with Spain. He went on holiday and turned his phone off and just went away and kind of ignored everything. And I respect that, you know.
Yeah.
So they've had a week now to kind of assess him and see where he's at. So they've not really said anything in terms of where his injury was, because he went off in the Euros final with a hamstring problem, I think it was. So we kind of wait and see on that one. And Guardiola will do his press conference on Friday. He will no doubt be asked about it, and kind of will know at that point how much he can be involved. Generally, Rodri and fitness is quite good. So coming back from injury and kind of coming back in pre-season, he tends to just play. He tends to just be ready and play. I don't know if it's a case of actually maybe he shouldn't. Maybe City have been a bit too over-reliant on him, and maybe he should be eased back a bit more. But history tells us that once he's in the team, he just plays every week, and that's kind of how it goes. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him at weekend. I don't know the extent of kind of where he's up to in his recovery. But at the same time, if he's not fit and not ready for weekend, I think what the Chelsea game did was show that they have at least a plan for what to do when he's not there. If Gundogan hasn't come back and isn't over the line by Saturday, I think you'll probably see Kovacic and kind of Bernardo and De Bruyne helping him out in the middle again.
Yeah, you had like Foden, Ake, Stones, Grealish, Walker on the bench. Not much depth there then. I mean, that's Stamford Bridge. Do you feel
that's the thing, is that they were on the bench, but there was certainly a view that they ain't coming on unless they really need to, because again they've not had a pre-season, so it's very much a case of this is the starting 11. We will go with the starting 11 until we absolutely have to not do it. Guardiola's not that. He doesn't. He's not keen on making subs, let's say. And one of the reasons for that is he looks at kind of what state the game is in and goes, I don't really want to upset the balance of this game. And introducing somebody who's not up to the speed of the game presents a risk that they could do something that isn't quite right and doesn't quite work properly. So there's the number of times when City are 0-0 on 70 minutes and the fans are going, get someone on, change it up. And Guardiola's going, I'm quite happy with where things are, because if we carry on like this, we'll probably score. So I'm not going to mess with it too much here. So sometimes you look at City's bench and go, there's a lot of options there, and sometimes you look at the bench and go, there's a lot of options there, but Guardiola's not going to use them.
Surely, like Ipswich on paper, probably is an ideal fixture for you. First one back at the Etihad to actually probably bed them in if they need minutes under their belt.
Yeah. I don't like facing newly promoted sides early in the season because what tends to happen is I always think back to Cardiff when they came up in 2014. They beat City really early in the season, and City went on to win the title that year under Pellegrini. But it was a really, really tough game. And like everyone remembers that season, Cardiff went down with I think they were bottom of the table. They were quite comfortably not good enough to be in the Premier League. But in the first 2 months of the season, they were absolutely flying from the promotion. And that momentum was what helped them beat City. So I accept that City on paper should beat Ipswich at the weekend, and it should be a fairly kind of comfortable performance. But there's nothing comfortable about facing a newly promoted side who have momentum in the early weeks of the season while you are still kind of getting all your players back from pre-season. And it's that kind of City should win the game, and like it should be quite a comfortable thing. But at the same time, Ipswich have nothing to lose in this game because everyone expects them to lose already. Yes. And then all you need is the ball to bounce the right way in a couple of moments and the wrong way in another couple of moments. And suddenly you've got a perfect storm there of what can happen when a newly promoted side goes to the champions in the early weeks of the season. I didn't see a lot of your game against Liverpool, but certainly in the first half, you look pretty good and you look pretty able to cope with what Liverpool will offer. And again, I know Liverpool are not quite the same as they were previously. New manager, new style, all that sort of thing. But they do still have like Mo Salah, and they just still have like really good players like Diogo Jota and stuff. So like to be able to kind of come up and kind of roll with the punches, certainly for the first half of the game, it doesn't necessarily lead me to think that it'll be a comfortable weekend for City, this one. So like you look on paper and you go, yeah, it should be quite simple, but I mean, it's that old cliche: football isn't played on paper, and you see with your eyes exactly what I see with my eyes, and there's a you play this game 100 times, City might win it 99, but that doesn't mean they'll win on Saturday. So it's one of those that always kind of I always feel a bit anxious talking about they can bed in players here and there, because winning games in the Premier League is tough. It's tough for Ipswich. It's tough for City. You still have to kind of go out there and do it. And when you don't go out there and do it, that's when you get a bloody nose and somebody else goes off with the 3 points.
We were watching Monday Night Football, weren't we, Martin? And Carragher was obviously on there, and he likened that Ipswich first half performance, especially, to something like Luton would have done last season. I was thinking back, David, when you played them, you obviously beat them 5-1 at the Etihad. And Carragher said, Ipswich had a very kind of Luton-style energy. And even though it was 5-1, you had 40 shots almost on goal in that game. But it was only 2-0 until about the 75th minute. So what's your memories of that game? Were you just camped in Luton's half, basically? Is that what we can expect on Saturday?
I have to be honest and say I didn't see the game. I was at a wedding. So I don't really remember a lot of the game. I remember not having signal. And City scored kind of like in the first minute or so with a rather fortuitous own goal. I think Haaland had a shot that was kind of threatening the corner flag a bit more than it was threatening the goal, and it ended up hitting someone in the face and going in. And then, like, from speaking to people around me or speaking to people who sit around me at the Etihad, it got a bit tense in the second half. I can't remember when the second goal went in. But certainly towards the end of the game, it was kind of like City are kind of limping over the line here. Oh, they've scored. Oh, they've scored again. Oh, they've scored again. Fine. All right. It looks quite a comfortable win. So I can't really offer a lot of insight into what that game was like because I didn't experience it live. But from those around me, it didn't seem, it wasn't maybe as comfortable as the scoreline suggested at the end. I think it was a case of maybe when it gets to 3-1 at that point. It might have been 3-0. I don't even know the order of the goals for that game. I wasn't there. But certainly there was a point where I think City scored late on and Ipswich were like, right, Luton were like, oh, well, that's it, we're done. And then at that point, it became a little bit easier for City to cut through. And it was also just around about the start, if I remember rightly, of City hitting what we call, what me and a few friends have dubbed battle mode. They get to the end of the season, and it's like they either win. Guardiola says, we win or win, C or C, yes or yes. And he basically means if you don't win, you're not going to win the title. So go out there and win. However it takes, you just have to win the game. And when City get into that mode, they tend to put a string of wins together at the end of the season. And I think that game fell in there. If you flip it to the game at Kenilworth Road earlier in the season, City were really, really struggling in that one. I think they were 1-0 down at half-time with a goal right on half-time. And then I think they scored twice in the second half and had to really battle to get out of there with the 3 points. So that could be a little bit more of a signifier. Now, I mean, home advantage and City being at the Etihad this weekend probably doesn't help you guys. But I can kind of, I wouldn't be surprised with a mixture of those two sort of performances. If it's a kind of a tough Ipswich performance early on, and if the scoreline ends up quite big, I don't necessarily think it will maybe tell the story of the game, unless City score 4 times in the first 10 minutes or whatever, and then you kind of go, oh right, yeah, fine, we've been pummeled. But for the reputation City have, that doesn't actually happen that often. So
that's good to hear. We've had nightmares about that, haven't we? Fall down after 10 minutes. I mean, we were in that Liverpool game, and Martin, we were talking in our post-match show, weren't we? Ipswich were very physical in that first half against Liverpool. We got a yellow after 5 minutes. Then we had 3 yellows after about 20 minutes.
Yeah, let them know you're there. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Is there like a school of thought, David, maybe that, City can be a little bit lightweight in areas like Bernardo's not the biggest, Doku, that Lewis. I mean, can teams get physical with City? You
would think. But I think one of the underrated qualities of City is that they're actually a little, I didn't want to swear, but I nearly said it then. They're actually quite, they can right a few wrongs. Let's put it that way. So, Bernardo especially is like, Bernardo's not really a kicker. He doesn't really go out and kick a few players. But you saw what happened in the Community Shield where Garnacho was wasting a bit of time. So Bernardo decided, I'm just going to take a yellow card then. I'm going to kick you in the air. I'm going to take a yellow card. Fine. And it's not beyond City to do that. I don't think City really. So Gary Neville about 5 or 6 years ago kind of talked about City as the masters of the dark arts. And I don't really think that's true either. I don't think every team tactically fouls. So like if a team is going to break away, you pull a shirt here and take the yellow card. It's like it's an understandable thing. I mean, bloody hell, we did it on Tuesday night at our local 6-a-side league. If someone's breaking away, it's either you're going to get away from me here, or I'm going to either win the ball or you're coming down. That's how it works. Like we all understand that unwritten rule of football. So I don't think City are this evil team that go around chopping players down as soon as they start to break away. But they're not against doing that when the time is right. I mean, I remember last season, Brighton at home, City were leading 2-1 with a couple of minutes left, and Brighton was starting to break away. And Akanji just got himself sent off because he took a second yellow to say, "I am stopping this counter attack." And it means I'm going to take a 1-game suspension, but it's more important that this counter-attack does not happen in the 89th minute. And that's kind of how it works. And yes, it upsets the Brighton fans because, a cynical player's done that. But at the end of the day, like we all understand that is what you do in that situation. And that's kind of how it works. So I think if Ipswich were to try, I mean, Guardiola has his concerns about things like the height of Rico Lewis. Like Rico Lewis is a fantastic little player, and that's the problem. He's a little player, and I think that's where Guardiola's he gets a bit he gets in his own head about it. So like you watch what Lewis does and kind of how he passes the ball, how he tackles, how he moves up and down the pitch, the pockets of space he gets into. Guardiola will say every single one of those things is incredible and so good is his catchphrase. But Lewis can't win aerial balls that easily because he's not very big. And if the opposition see that and sense that and they start targeting him with that, Guardiola will get anxious about it, and then you're more likely to see Kyle Walker in that position, and that's kind of how it kind of manifests. So I don't know if City I don't think City are particularly susceptible to being knocked around. I'd be interested to see what happens if a real kind of old school classic knock 'em around team like Stoke were to give him a go. But when Guardiola's City in it wasn't really a Tony Pulis style Stoke when Guardiola when Guardiola arrived, but I mean City took Stoke apart a fair few times because of like exploiting pockets of space and that sort of stuff. So I'm confident City could roll with the punches if Ipswich decided to make it a real physical battle. But at the same time, you know, I can't think of the last time City had a real proper scrap with a team, if that makes sense.
And you don't become the dominant team that Manchester City have become without having that mentality of champions, you know, like minute burst away where it's taking one for the team, you know, and that's the thing. They're not going to be the biggest, but they've still got that mentality of champions and being dominant. Right, half time. If you dig the channel, hit like and subscribe, and don't forget we are partnered with SolarWise Roofing and Building Services Limited. Check out SolarWise Roofing and Building.co.uk for their whole host of services from solar panels to roofing repairs. Call 01206 628 544. That's 01206 628 544. Right, back to David. You mentioned Pep there, and since he's arrived, he's really he's transformed English football. I mean, you look at the pyramid now, you go right down to the bottom, and teams are playing.
Yeah, it's not even the professional game. So I realised something in our. So I'm a goalkeeper, and I realised in our Tuesday 6-a-side football, we started about 5 years ago. We're all City fans in this team, so we all kind of watch. We've all been Pep pilled, so we've all watched Guardiola's football and gone, right, this is the way to do it. And so we started like I'm not the most comfortable with the ball at my feet, but I'll happily take the pass back and I'll happily kind of play it around a little bit with the defenders. We give away a fair few goals doing that, but like ultimately it helps us play through and keep the ball and everything else. And I realized a few weeks ago, yes, we are one of the older teams at the place that we play in the league that we play. But I looked at all the other goalkeepers doing exactly that, all doing it better than me. And I remember thinking like 3 years ago, 4 years ago, none of them were doing this. Pre-pandemic, we used to go down and play, and it would only be us doing it. Every other goalkeeper was rooted to the line. They'd stop shots and then they'd throw it out, and like it goes behind for a goal kick and they'd punt it long. They wouldn't take it short anywhere. And now there's not a single team in this league that we play in that doesn't like play it out from the back and play it forward. And we now, as the older team in the league, can't keep up with it, and we can't because they're all understanding space and exploiting space and and where to press and all that sort of stuff. It's like, well, all we can do is drop off and let you have the ball, and it just like this isn't what I got into football for. I used to be. I'm not a great goalkeeper. I'm not I've never made it anywhere near professional level. But I used to be able to go down to these places and go, if I play to the best of my ability, I'll be the best goalkeeper here tonight. Whereas now, if I play to the best of my ability, I'll be down the pecking order by like at least 5 or 6. And there's only 8 teams or so that play on an evening. So like you look at kind of as fans and as football watchers. Since Guardiola's arrived in England, we all kind of like it's not just Guardiola. It's kind of you look at managers like Arteta and certainly Klopp as well. They all understand how to exploit space, and they all understand how to move the ball in order to kind of pull players here and there and exploit space. And I mean, Kieran McKenna at Ipswich has been he's aware of it as well. And you think of teams that I mean, we were talking earlier about Joe Royle and kind of the link between City and Ipswich there. You know, you go back and watch some of Royals football at City, especially, and it's percentage play all the way along. It's put the ball in dangerous areas, and something dangerous might happen. Whereas Guardiola would kill you if you tried doing that. Like if you gave the ball away, trying to just put it in a dangerous area while you had a passing option on to exploit some space and to move the opposition somewhere else, Guardiola would hook you off that pitch immediately. So it's Premier League level, it's Championship level, it's down through League One, League Two, down through non-league, and all the way down to the football league I play in Reddish on a Tuesday night. Everybody has understood what it means to move the ball and to exploit space, and it's I always worried when Guardiola arrived in England that City would be the club that broke him, that he'd be really good and great everywhere else. And then especially after that first season, I was like, oh, this might not work here, and he might be done. And then the second season comes along, they get 100 points, and I'm like, okay, yeah, everything's going to be all right, I reckon.
And you mentioned the goalkeeper there, and obviously from the outside looking in and remembering back, that was sort of one of Pep's first influences on the game in the goalkeeper situation, where you had Joe Hart, good goalkeeper, and then he moved him out and brought another goalkeeper in who was better with his feet, and then from that point, it feels like to me that the evolution of goalkeepers, that's where it sort of began.
I'd love to write a book on goalkeeping, like to go back to what goalkeeping used to be, because you go back to like the late 1890s or whatever. I reckon the goalkeeper used to stand there in goal and do nothing else other than like dive around a bit and try and block things.
Have a cigarette.
Cigarette, like a piece of rope for the crossbar and all that sort of stuff. And you just kind of look where they are now, and you've got Edison being the third centre back in the build-up, and you kind of like, if you were to show that to some goalkeeper from like 1886 or whatever, they'd go, well, I don't do that. That's not what I do. I stand there, I roll around a bit and dive, and then I drop kick it down the other end and get it as far away from my goal as possible.
Or even 96.
Yeah.
It accelerated so quickly. Look at the Premier League era of 2000s, etc. Some good goalkeepers, but I don't think any of them could play with their feet.
We had Richard Wright, didn't we, Martin? And that was kind of the first time we'd seen a sweeper keeper down at Portman Road.
Yeah, Richard Wright's at our place now.
Of course.
I've got a funny story about Richard Wright, actually, which is a bit of a segue, but I'll tell you now. When he signed for City, he basically retired. I think he'd been at Preston and they hadn't offered him a deal, he said, I've just decided to call it quits. There's no deal on the table, and he was on a stadium tour of the Emirates Stadium in London with his kids, and his agent phoned and said, "Do you want to? Man City have been on the blower. Do you want to sign for them?" And he said, "Yeah, all right then." And then he's still there now. He's the goalkeeping coach, and it's one of the real funny aspects is when City have won the league in the last couple of years, they bring everybody out onto the pitch and they announce them all, and you've got. Please welcome Pep Guardiola, and there's a massive cheer, and then it's his assistant Juan Marleo, and there's a cheer, and then they go through all the backroom staff, all these Spanish names, and it's like bang, 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 and Richard Wright, and it's just like it takes me by surprise every single time, because it's like why are you here? Like, why is Richard Wright the only English member of the backroom staff? And like, what do you do? And it all takes me back to that rivalry that City and Ipswich had in kind of 99, 2000, because it was Nicky Weaver and Richard Wright in the opposite goals.
Nicky Weaver,
and it was like, it just, everything comes back round to City and Ipswich in the end. It's really, really weird.
And you've got a lot of love for Ipswich, haven't you, David?
I absolutely despised you lot in 2000 and 2001 and 99. So like, it goes back to, I went to Portman Road you'll probably remember this game. I went to Portman Road in that 99-2000 season. It must have been the start of September. We played Norwich away and then Ipswich away. And I remember wondering if the team would go back up to Manchester in between, because there was like 6 days between it, and I just wondered if they'd stay down there. And we didn't go to the Norwich game, but we went to Portman Road, and we didn't play particularly well. We did all right, and we were kind of fighting in there. And you beat us courtesy of a deflection off Richard Jobson.
Gary Croft.
Could have been. Yeah, could have been.
Yeah, and a Sunday, wasn't it? A Sunday.
Yeah. I think it was certainly live on Sky. And I remember thinking, I was really annoyed by that, because I thought we'd done all right, and it was a deflection that had won the game, and like we'd gone all the way down to Ipswich to watch this game. And the away end's on the side, isn't it? I think the away end's on the side of the pitch. Yeah. So I had a fairly good view of everything else, and we had a goal disallowed when, I mean, these days, there's absolutely 0% chance it would stand, because I think Richard Wright had pretty much caught the ball when Sean Goater shoulder charged him into the goal. But in the late 90s, early noughties, there was a chance it might get given. Yeah. And so we had that decide. So I remember feeling aggrieved about that. And then we played the return game. Was only about a month later. It was like the end of September, start of October sort of thing. It was a Tuesday night, I think, at Main Road, and we won 1-0. And Nicky Weaver played the game of his life. And I remember thinking, right, that's Ipswich done for the season. And then all the way through that season, we were in second and you were in third. And I was like, will you just leave us alone? Will you just just let us go up, will you, please? Because we'd come up the year before and had been competitive from about Christmas onwards in Division 2 in the third tier. There was no way we were getting automatic promotion. We just left it too late. We were 12th in Division 2 at the turn of the year, and we finished third and basically got up on the momentum of doing that. And then obviously the Gillingham game happens, and the 2-0 down 90 minutes, and like a couple of late goals to equalise, win on penalties, and all of that momentum just took City up the next season. City were not the second best team in Division 1 that year. They were probably a mid-table side. And I think it showed when they got to the Premier League that they weren't good enough, and they hadn't built enough. But that momentum was it was still going towards the end of that season. And always looking over my shoulder at Ipswich and just thinking, please just drop some points. And he didn't. And then it went to the next week and the next week. And then the anxiety of we were away at Blackburn on the final day. We'd gone 1-0 down in the first half. You scored. David Johnson scored for you guys.
It's Walsall.
Yeah. With just early in the second half. And I remember the Sky commentary saying that, because I watched it at my grand's house on Sky. And I remember the commentator saying there's more anxiety for City fans now, because not only are they concerned that their team's losing, they've just heard that Ipswich have scored at Portman Road. And there's all these fans with hands on their heads and stuff. And about a couple of minutes later, Ashley Ward turns Richard Edgill inside out on the left-hand side of the City box, curls this shot around Nicky Weaver. Nicky Weaver is beaten all ends up. And he turns, watches it hit the post, and it comes straight back to him and lands in his hands. And that was the fourth time that Blackburn hit the post or the bar in that game.
That's right.
And there's a shot of the referee walking through he walks in front of one of the City players that the camera was a close up on, and he just kind of goes because he can't believe what's happened. And speaking to Nicky Weaver years later, he said at that moment when that ball dropped into my hands, even though we were 1-0 down, I was like, we can't lose this game. Like, there's no way we're going to lose this game because of the look that we had. And then out of nowhere, we equalised. And then from that point on, Blackburn collapsed. And it was like at that point, I thought, yes, we've shaken off the shackles of Ipswich Town. Then the Premier League season comes along. I'm
feeling sorry for you now.
you lot qualify for the UEFA Cup. We go down. We go back down, and it's you that sends us down. You knock us out of the League Cup in like ultimately bizarre circumstances. When we're having a terrible season, but a good cup run. Quarter-final stage, we run into you guys at Main Road. The first game's abandoned. I remember watching Nicky Weaver drop kick a ball the length of the pitch. Like nobody winning the header, and it hitting the grass and stopping instantly. And at that point, I was thinking, this game probably isn't going to survive this weather, because it was one of those where, you know, when you kick the ball and all the water from the puddles just goes everywhere. Yeah. One of them. Yeah. We come back a week later. We go 1-0 up in that one. And then at 1-0, Kevin Horlock gets his head kicked in by Herman Haridason in the penalty area. He comes up looking like Terry Butcher with blood running down his head and a bandage on. And Graham Paul's like, no, play on. No penalty. You equalise and knock us out in extra time. And so that happens. Then we get to Portman Road, like penultimate game of the season, needing to win to stay up. You beat us there. You are the weakest link. Goodbye is a banner that is unfurled with in the stand.
You took the lead as well.
Yeah, we took the lead with about 15 minutes left and still lost. And it's just like everything about for those 2 seasons. It was like, well, Ipswich Town, please just go away. I cannot be doing with what Ipswich Town are doing to us time after time after time.
I love that it still hurts.
I know exactly. I know that like time has moved on. Time's a great healer and all that sort of thing. And like City are a different club now. They've been taken over. They've won all sorts and everything and the power that they've got. But it's a grudge I just can't let go. I can't explain it. I was a like 12, 13-year-old boy in high school having United fans around me, consistently, mercilessly taking the mickey over yet another City failure and relegation. And I mean, I know that that's all turned out all right in the end.
And then some.
But Ipswich Town were the source of that needle.
Who knew?
So yeah, I've never let it go.
do you? I mean, it's a bit of a funny question, this, but do you?
No, I'm not in therapy as it happens. No,
do you kind of miss those main road years? Because like as you said earlier, like if a team was to finish 12th in the third tier of English football, it was always going to be Manchester City, wasn't it? They were never going to bounce back in like automatic fashion.
So it's a really weird one because yes and no. I do miss it, but I don't miss it. I would never trade what we've seen with Guardiola of the last kind of 7, 8, 9 years, and even Pellegrini and Mancini ahead of that. But what I do miss is I miss the freedom to support City without the baggage that comes with it. And listen, I know the takeover there's problems with it and kind of where the money's come from and that sort of stuff. But the other side of it is what makes it a little bit more interesting and kind of full disclosure. I'm a gay man, so you have the questions about human rights in Abu Dhabi and all that sort of that side of the club as well, which I kind of wish City weren't as intertwined with as they are because the leadership of Abu Dhabi. There's a lot of fans that get quite upset about being called state owned because legally they're not state owned. I don't really think it makes a difference. There's a lot of high-powered people in Abu Dhabi who also have positions that are kind of synonymous with positions at City and that sort of thing. So that's a little bit of discomfort with it all. So there's that side of things, but at the same time, you kind of have to say, well, I'm just a fan of this club. It's like I can't. There's nothing I can do about that. Whether the club got me a long time before that happened. They sunk their hooks into me. Well, when Ipswich Town were causing me all sorts of terror. So with that, you kind of the way I kind of position it, and maybe it makes me a hypocrite, I don't know, but the way I position it is, I'll happily enjoy everything that's going on the pitch. I'll happily kind of continue to support City and be a City fan because that is just what's going to happen. You can't switch that off in the way that I think fans of other big clubs kind of suggest that you should be able to if kind of problems with things behind the scenes do arise. But at the same time, I don't really take ownership of what City do off the pitch, and I don't really take ownership and celebrate kind of everything else that comes with it. I'll quite happily celebrate the football and celebrate Guardiola and celebrate everything else there. But I don't really think we should be. I don't think it's my place to celebrate the kind of what City do behind all the scenes. So there is that, and then I think back to what the days were like at Main Road, and it's very easy to look at Main Road with rose tinted glasses now, because we know it turns out all right, and we know that the ending to that story is that City get taken over and you get to enjoy all the good times that you've enjoyed over the last few years. And in 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, you don't know that, and you don't know kind of where it's going to go. And certainly when I first started going to Main Road in the late 90s, it was a very, very nasty place to be. City were in the process of messing up big time. They were relegated in 96. I didn't have a season ticket in 96. I got one for the 97-98 season. And they were the bookies' favourites to go back up to the Premier League that season. They finished mid-table, and the start of that season, they cycled through managers. It was Alan Ball to start with. He resigned a couple of weeks into the season. They had a caretaker for a few weeks until they appointed Steve Coppell, who resigned after 30 odd days. They had a caretaker again, and then Frank Clark was appointed. He didn't inspire any sort of change at City. And by the time Joe Royle arrives in April 98, February 98, they're 2 points off the bottom of Division 1, ready to go down. And the fans had enough. There's this story that I'm almost certain the second bit of it is not true. Because why would it be? Because why would it be true? But the first half of it is definitely true. There's a fan that City lost at home to Bury, who obviously now no longer with us.
Mm.
They lost at home to Bury, and a fan ran on the pitch and ran straight to the dugout and tore his season ticket up right in front of the dugout. And then the story goes that it then arrived in the post again the next week with a note that said, "If we have to suffer this, then so do you." That is almost certainly not true. But it's a good laugh.
Great story.
And like you would think that represents the nadir of where City were, and it just didn't. Like things would get worse, and that it kind of sums up where people were with City at Main Road. So that I don't miss, and that I think was very. It's very weird watching your closest rival. I mean, can you imagine watching Norwich City be the most successful side that the country has ever seen while you're dogging around the third tier trying to get back? It's just like it's such a weird position.
Yeah,
we've not been on that level, David, but we've certainly been, in the wilderness watching Norwich City in the Premier League, and everything like that. We're not nowhere near the level you're describing, but even that level.
It's not nice. It hurts, and then you kind of like the Keegan era at Main Road was good, and we had some excitement come in. But every single one of these eras always ended up with it running out of steam. City have no money. Okay, it needs a bit of a refresh, and it kind of meanders there. And you get to kind of 2006, 2007 time. Stuart Pearce is the City manager. We don't really know where we're going, and we got knocked out of the FA Cup at Blackburn in 2007, where it was a real good chance at getting to Wembley that year. The FA Cup draw had really opened up. We'd drawn Blackburn away, and I think they'd had a man sent off as well at some point in this game. So we're playing 11 against 10, and they beat us 2-0. And the fans had just had enough, and it became like chanting from the away end, "You're not fit to wear the shirt," and all that sort of stuff. And I remember being numb at the end of that game, thinking, "This is as good as it's ever going to get." This is like we're gonna have a half decent cup run, get knocked out as soon as we meet somebody of any who can do anything decent. And we hit 40 points and stay up, and that's it. And that's about as good. We'll never play European football. We'll never win a trophy. Like this is as good as it's going to get. Lo and behold, obviously, a few years later, it got quite a lot better. You kind of that was the kind of malaise about it, and it's very easy to romanticize that era when you know what era comes after it.
Happened, yeah.
I think if we were still in that position now, I don't think I'd feel anywhere near as happy as I think I remember feeling, and kind of as invested in it. So I miss Main Road as a stadium. I miss it as a place to be. I think Main Road was a fabulous place. I absolutely loved it there. But at the same time, times move on, and it wouldn't have been fit for purpose, and like the Etihad as a ground it's pretty damn good, and it's good to be. I mean, it's really we've been at the Etihad now for a quarter of the time we're at Main Road. We're at Main Road 80 years. We've been at the Etihad 20 years now. So it's kind of it's not a new stadium anymore. It's very much a kind of a home, and it's. So when I say when you say do I miss those days? I miss the innocence of it, and I miss the ability for people. I actually kind of miss people feeling sorry for me when I say I'm a City fan, because you don't like there's no world now where I go into a conversation as the underdog, and it's just like I accept that that's what comes with success. But I miss the kind of you know what I mean? Oh, he's a City fan. Oh, it's
quick one before you go, Dave, because we know you got to shoot. Calvin Phillips coming to town. How do you think he's going to do? And obviously we have Delap and Muric as well on our books.
Oh, I didn't realise Delap and Muric were there. That'll be tasty then in that case, because Muric is a bit of a he's a bit of character, isn't he?
Yeah.
Well, he's injured at the moment.
So is he? Right. Okay.
It's the Liverpool game, but he might be back for Saturday.
Right. Okay. So he was. He was lively when he was at City. I never saw any of the madness when he was at City, but I think he got sent off for his country for a couple of times by steaming out and clattering someone.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. He got old aggressive goalkeeping style. Delap's. We didn't really see a lot of him. I think one of Guardiola's most famous meltdowns in the City dugout. We played Leicester it was the season behind closed doors, so 2021. We played Leicester at the Etihad, and we'd gone 2-1 down. And on about 50 minutes, so like I said before, this is a manager who doesn't make substitutions. On about 50 minutes, he took Fernandinho, the holding midfielder, off and brought Liam Delap on. And then afterwards, in the post-match interview, had the goal to say, "Oh, the players decided that they started to attack too quickly." And I was like, "Yeah, of course they did. You look at the message you sent. You said you took a holding midfielder off and put a striker on. Like, what did you think was going to happen? They lost 5-2." But Delap, he always put himself about a bit for City, and I liked that. He never really kind of got over the line into being good enough to kind of like regularly come on and regularly kind of make an impact for City in the way that players like Oscar Bob has done and Cole Palmer did a couple of years ago. But he also left a lot earlier than certainly Palmer did. So I think he'll be an interesting one, certainly in the Premier League. I don't know enough about him, but I think he's got potential to certainly score enough goals to maybe keep you up. So I'd be interested in that. And Phillips, I just hope it works. I just hope it works for him. I think he's had a torrid couple of years. It's obvious the move to City was not the right move. He wouldn't have known that. Why would he not have backed himself to come in at City as soon as City are interested? I think City made a mistake. They don't often make mistakes in the transfer market these days. They tend to get things right. But I think I think what happened was the player they were expecting wasn't the player that Calvin Phillips is. And then when it became a toss-up between him and Rodri for the holding midfield position, it was always Rodri, because Rodri, the one thing Phillips struggled with was in possession, knowing where to be to offer that pass to keep the build-up going. And he would quite often do a thing, certainly at City, in a team that's going to have a lot of the ball and are going to have to progress it in certain ways, where he would make a pass and then kind of remain hidden behind the defender that he'd just passed it past, rather than kind of step to one side to be the option in the way that Rodri does. And I'm not suggesting that he should be Rodri and he should be Calvin Phillips and the player that he is. But his skill set didn't really match what City wanted from a player in that position. And also, ultimately City thought it was going to, and it just didn't. And then you have 2 years at City where he barely kicks a ball. And when he does kick a ball, he hasn't been particularly good. And then he goes on loan to West Ham, which is probably not the right move for him as well, for the same sort of reasons. And I think in his first game, he gave a penalty away and kind of caused the equaliser. He got sent off a bit later on and was kind of filmed swearing at fans. And you kind of go like, if a player is in a position where when he's going off the pitch, he's swearing at his own fans, then obviously something is not right. Obviously, like, he's feeling the pressure and everything that comes with it. And I'm not gonna, you don't make excuses for him doing that, but at the same time, we don't know the full story and we don't know everything, kind of the pressure that he's been under, certainly over the last 2 years. And so what I think Ipswich has for him is it's a long way from Manchester. And I know West Ham isn't exactly on the doorstep, but it's quite an easy route between Manchester and London consistently. Whereas Manchester to Ipswich and Ipswich to Manchester, as you're about to find out on Saturday, not an easy drive. So it's like the thing that kind of does it. It's away from here. He's gone away to somewhere completely different with a chance to blow out the cobwebs and in a place where he is going to play regularly, because he's coming in as one of the players with experience of the Premier League to a team that's just come up. And I just hope it works. I hope it works for him. I hope it works for Ipswich, and I hope it works for City, because if it works for him, then great. His career's back on track, and he's got a chance of getting back into the England side right up until Guardiola becomes England manager, and then he's not getting back in again. He's got a chance to get back into the England side. He's got a chance of a permanent move away from City to somewhere that will work well. City have got a chance of getting some money back from him, because at the moment, if they were to sell him, they wouldn't get anywhere near what they paid for him. And Ipswich, if it works well, then you might stay up. So it's kind of it has the potential to be win-win-win all around. If it doesn't work for him, then I just don't really know where he goes after that. I don't really know what happens. And ultimately, that's where I land on. I hope it works, because he said he came into work. So I work for I'm freelance, but I do some work for BBC 5 Live, and he was in the office a couple of summers ago when the Amazon documentary about him, or Apple TV, when one of the streaming services did a documentary about him. And he's a nice lad. He's a really, really nice lad. And I just like him to get back his career, because he's at the stage of his career now where if it doesn't happen soon, he's going to end up in his early 30s and nobody wanting to take a chance on him. And I always feel a bit sad from a player that's had good opportunities and in the past been a good Premier League player. I wouldn't like his career to end like that.
Absolutely. David, look, honestly, thank you so much for your time. It's been a real pleasure listening to you, and I hope you have a good season, just not Saturday, obviously.
Well,
And,
after what we talked about earlier, I hope we take you apart on Saturday. I hope City go. You know what? We heard what that David Mooney said, and we're just going to carry on. We're going to steamroller this lot. I hope it's the worst defeat in Premier League history. No, I don't really. I've managed
already.
Yeah, I know. I've managed to let it go. It's fine. It's a new Ipswich Town to the one that caused me so much pain. And you know what? We've got a few good common links in Joe Royle and Kevin Hawke. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
What a chat with David. We really could have gone on for hours, and we made it through a podcast without mentioning Erling Haaland. I don't think that's ever been done since he arrived in English football.
No, exactly. We don't want to be thinking about him because you'll see enough of him for 90 minutes on Saturday. So yeah,
absolutely, we really will. Oh, what a time! It's going to be a great game. Looking forward to it. Obviously, we're live this evening for our match preview. We've got Brozier possibly being announced today. You know, it was an exciting time to be a Town fan. David did ask before he left if I could give a quick mention to there's a food bank under the bridge near Asda, which is just near the Etihad. And if you could please donate any items to they all go to the Manchester Central Food Bank. And if you can't donate, Matt, he said just pop on by and offer support because they love to do pictures with opposition fans to help spread that word that, hunger doesn't wear club colours.
Yeah, that's their strapline. Really good, isn't it? Yeah. So, I mean, look, Ipswich Town fans, first class, aren't they? So I'm sure that those that are going will go over there and support them and represent the Tractor Boys at the Etihad. Absolutely.
Absolutely. So see us tonight live at 8 p.m. Check out Stomach Osteopaths, 01449613633. But yeah, great interview. Thanks to David. Support the food bank initiative near the Etihad. But until tonight, 8 p.m., have a great day.